I never want to make the same album again. I don't want to. My worst nightmare is to become a band that rest on their laurels, basically, and release the same album over and over. Oh, we had the success with this, and you try to make a song based on the same formula. That has no appeal to me as a musician. I think as a musician, you want to grow and get better, and you need to challenge yourself. And at the end of your career, you can look back on all the albums, and then you can judge and see which one you think is best. But at the time of releasing an album, if you don't really believe and really feel that the album that you release is by far the best one that you ever done so far in your career, then you shouldn't release it. If you release that album just because you need an album to tour on, or just because you need the money, then your integrity as an artist should be up for debate.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 244 of Into the Necrosphere. At the very beginning of 2024, I ran a poll on Instagram and I asked you who you wanted me to have on the podcast. Many of you threw out requests like David Vincent, Attila, both of whom have been on the show before. One of the names that many of you also called out was Ravn of the band 1349, and this week, your wish is my command. Ravn joins me to talk about the upcoming 1349 full-length beast of an album dropping on Season of Mist Records on October the 4th. The album is The Wolf and the King. We also went back into the annals of history and spoke about the formation of the band, how he met Frost, how he met Svartalv. We touched on some key moments across the 1349 discography, and we touched on a couple of other subjects that I think he hasn't really spoken about on podcasts previously. This is truly Ravn like you have never heard him before, and it's coming your way very shortly. Before we get to that, though, out of Brisbane, Australia, this is Iron Witch. Laying waste to Brisbane, Australia, and now laying waste to your eardrums right here on Into the Necrosphere. That was Iron Witch with the song of the same name, taken from the album of the same name, brought to us courtesy of our good friends over at Gutter Prince Cabal. Gutter Prince Cabal is a label that is doing great things in the Asia-Pacific theatre. One of their head honchos, my good friend Nathan Glover, also of the bands Graveir and Longing More, actually joins me on the news rant this week. And he gave me an update on what he's getting up to musically, as well as joining me to round up the latest singles for Judgment. So when I'm done talking to Ravn, don't go anywhere, because more good things coming your way. And of course, more good things coming your way across the course of every single week, courtesy of the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse, of which I am a very proud member. Every Monday, we've got Brandon Legion bringing you another episode of Horrible 666. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses every Tuesday on Into the Necrosphere. Every Wednesday, we've got Sensei Mike Hill bringing you Everything Went Black. Of course, every other Wednesday, we double up your pleasure when Cheyenne of the band Trivax unleashes another episode of Iblis Manifestations. I just want to say massive congratulations to Cheyenne. He's just about to drop his 100th episode, which is a great milestone. I remember when he first reached out to me to let me know that he was going to start his own podcast. That kind of feels like a lifetime ago, but Iblis Manifestations is very much a brother podcast to Into the Necrosphere in terms of content. And, you know, frankly, Cheyenne is one of those guys who I am exceptionally pleased I have been able to befriend, through the vehicle of doing Into the Necrosphere. So he will be on the show again at some point very soon, but obviously make sure that you support both his band Trivax as well as Iblis Manifestations. Moving on to Thursdays, we've got one of my favorite podcasts of the week, Necromaniacs. You get another serving of Sensei Mike Hill on that one, and he's of course joined by his co-hosts, the great Sheriff Mike Scandado and Professor Jeff Kashid. They talk about new and old horror movies. This past week, they spoke about Eden Lake, which was a UK horror movie, quite controversial upon its release, in my opinion, because it quite realistically shows the sad state of affairs amongst British youth, but definitely a conversation that was super entertaining, and the movie is really good too. Also on a Thursday, and then again on a Sunday, we've got the Sinister Minister, Carl Hikara, bringing you a journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with his podcast, Soul Knocks. And that rounds out the gang, my friends. Make sure you are subscribed to all of us. If the spirit moves you to do so, leave us a 5-star review on your platform of choice. Many of us have Teespring stores or merch stores. If you really want to show your support for us, head over there, buy yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie. And again, thank you very much to every member of the Legion that has been sporting on the socials either a Into the Necrosphere tank top, t-shirt, or whatever the case may be. On my conversation with Ravn, unfortunately, we don't have camera on his side of the fence. Some technical gremlins crept in on StreamYard, so you are left with only my masculine features to see you through the course of our 80-minute conversation, but trust me, it'll be well worth it. Coming your way right now, I'd like to welcome, for the first time ever, and hopefully not the last time, Ravn of 1349. No, our mutual friend Svartalv, how did the two of you meet? How long have you guys been friends for?
Well, we met in the later half of the 90s. I can't remember the exact year or so, but it was we all hung out at Elm Street, as you might know. It kind of was the cradle of the Norwegian black metal founded in Oslo. Everybody hung out there, so that's where you met everybody as well. And we immediately got a good tone and enjoyed each other's company, so the friendship grew from there on. And I helped him out with his band, Nocturnal Breed, at the time. And also did the lights for him, for them, and various productions, stuff that he wanted to see done. He always run the ideas by me, and then we figured something out, basically. So that's how the friendship started, and then it just turned into a mutual respect for each other as musicians as well. After I formed 1349, and it was in 2004 when we were making Beyond the Apocalypse. When he suggested that he asked if it would be possible if I would consider reviewing one of his lyrics or if he can write a lyric for 1349, because with Nocturnal Breed he didn't get to. It wasn't all the material that he had in him, and he felt that was suitable for Nocturnal Breed. So the more aggressive or esoterical sides would fit much better with 1349. So I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And I always felt that the writing process was a bit challenging. So then he wrote and also made guide vocals and gave it to me on a cassette. The lyrics for Blood is the Mortar. Mm-hmm. And needless to say, that was the start of a very fruitful cooperation, and it's still ongoing even today. I read his lyrics and I just figured out that why should I try and do this when he do it so much better? And I just if I feel the need for anything, I just give him some hints and tell him my ideas, and then it's basically been my to put it into today's terms. He has been my AI since 2004.
I bet he's going to love to hear that called an AI. He is such a cool guy, though. I had him. So I think the first time that I spoke to him was probably about 2 years ago, and he was just one of these people that kind of like when you met him, we just hit it off straight away. There's people that I've had on the podcast who you get on with really well, and sometimes you stay in touch with them, but there's very, very few times that you can meet somebody that you've not really ever spoken to previously, especially at our age, because I'm 4 years younger than you are. So especially at our age, you'll be able to relate to this as well. You don't really meet people that you just instantly connect with and you instantly hit it off, and you almost like after the first conversation you can start referring to them as a friend. But he was from by his own admission, he was a fucking wild man when you first met him.
Well, I can't go too much into those details, but we both had our fair share of histories that can be told if we live long enough to ever sit down at some old folks' home or something. There's been lives lived on this planet that has been more boring than the ones that we have gone through, and especially him. He never ceases to amaze me when he tells stories that I thought you knew this. He can tell us like, no, you never. I mean, I thought I knew most of your stories, but well, this also happened, and there's so many examples of that. Even when I went and visited him right before I left to Florida and to Jarrett's and to lay down the vocals and to mix the new album. And so I went to him then, and even then he told me some stories, and I was like, what? You never told me this. When did this happen? Oh yeah, it was then. It's like, why? It's like it's always something. It was
so much fun driving because he came to pick us up at the airport when we went to Inferno this year, and it was so much fun driving with him. And he can literally he'll stand at a set of traffic lights, and he'll go, oh, I remember when so and so was arrested on that street corner, and yeah, I remember when this guy got into a fight with this dude on this street corner. I mean, the guy has a photographic memory. It's fucking unreal.
Yeah, and he's able to turn all of that into to spoken words, and even better in writing. It's kind of what he does. He's a remarkable. He has a remarkable talent for combining the absurd with reality, and mixing everything in together, and what comes out is extremely unique, and it's an extreme talent. I really wish that and hope that it at some point it will be picked up. He has all sorts of ideas, and he writes constantly, like even movie scripts. So it would be a shame that if that at least not one of his scripts would be picked up and put on the big screen. He's an extremely talented fellow, and I'm extremely honored to and very grateful to have him work for me over all of these years.
Was there ever talk of him becoming a full, because he's kind of a silent member in 1349, but was there ever talk of him becoming a fully fledged part of the band, like coming in as a second guitarist, for example?
No, it's never been or never come to that, and he never asked of it either, and I don't really think that he would. I don't think he even would feel that he would fit in the band when it comes down to it. It's the four of us has been, how should I put it, alone in so many years now in that part, and he thrives more in his when he can create his own music to kind of he definitely would have to be. He likes to make his own stuff instead of playing others, So, like us, well, you never know what can happen, but it's never been discussed. And if he felt that was something he really wanted, I know that he would at least ask, So.
You touched on the four of you, and you guys are a bit of an anomaly in. I mean, I wouldn't even just say in black metal, but certainly in most of the scene as a band who has been together for, I mean, by my math, 27 years now, and you've not really had any major lineup changes. I mean, you've had one longer term member depart, really, and that's about it. But the core of the band, you. Archaon, Frost, Sedimon, that's kind of been the band more or less since 1999.
Yeah, that's correct. That's in the core. Well, Sjalve left in 2006 after Hellfire, so we just it was the four of us to continue, and the band just developed from there on. Basically, it's. I have a theory why it became this way as well. So, as I always said that we're not a band of friends. Like most bands are being formed because they are friends that want to play or create something, make something together. That's not how 1349 was formed. 1349 was formed with a mission. I was a fan of black metal and happy just to stay that way until the mid and later half of the 90s, where black metal turned into more of a synth-driven, orchestrated kind of, I don't know, goth music touch of it. The genre that I loved and everything I loved about black metal, the grimness and the aggression and the etheric sound that creates the atmosphere started to just flow out of the scene, and what was labeled black metal was nothing that I could feel or didn't give me any feeling or resemblance to what black metal was all about for me. So I, instead of just sit at Elm Street as the rest, many other people did, and just complain about how black metal was developing, I decided to just form a band of my own and find like-minded people that felt the same way, and let's do something about it. Just let's create black metal the way that we want it to be, and the want it to sound, and how we want black metal to evolve and develop. And so that's how all of the members in 1349 came into the band. They agreed and to this vision, and that's the reason why I think also has something to do with the terms that you enter the band with. I mean, like, for instance, Arkeon, I didn't know him before he even joined the band. He came in with the passion and the feeling for the same thing. And there were, on a personal level, basically it didn't matter. It was, he felt it the same way, and he had the skills to execute some really unique of riffs and ways of composing music that has benefited the band greatly in retrospect. So it all worked out very well, I will say.
In your opinion, why was there that softening of the black metal scene? Like, it kind of feels to me, if I think back to it now, it started around 1996, and you started to see more and more bands that just, I mean, you know, there's loads of politically incorrect words that I can use to describe it, but, you know, there was that whole, you know, guys sitting by the side of the river crying and just wandering in the forest looking miserable. The abrasive, confrontational aspect of it was really just completely hobbled. It just felt completely stripped away. And I could never wrap my head around at the time why it was happening. I'm sure many people couldn't, but, you know, as somebody who was close to the scene, why do you think that happened?
Well, that was puzzling to me as well, but I guess it was a combination of several things, but once a subgenre gets recognition, it will draw in people with different backgrounds, and I guess people that felt that they were on the outside felt that they belonged, or they felt resemblance to this genre, and they felt that they could utilize it for something and use it as a channel for their them feeling outlandish by the rest of the society or something. I guess that's why people go into more melancholic sides regardless. And I don't focus too much about it, but it's the outcome of it was, in one way you can say, it had a positive effect on the genre as a whole, but because it broadened the audience, it kind of opened the doors for it to become more accessible in a way. It was kind of like, oh, so black metal, is this black metal? People, if they heard like one of these bands, you know, and that sounded a bit softer, and then maybe that opened the door for them to also seek out other bands in the same genre that had more of an aggressive side. So in one way you can say that it led to more of a, could bring in more, potentially more fans, which, yeah, you know, it's a financial side to it as well. In order to maintain releasing albums, you need to sell them as well. So
yeah.
But for 1349, we tried to be as far away as on the other side. So when people came in through that synth era, so to speak, it would take them a long time to reach the other end of the of the genre, which is where we positioned ourselves, so to speak.
You guys had started originally in 1997, but I mean, Liberation only ended up coming out in 2003. And again, just touching on that album, I remember how just completely and utterly in your face it was. And I said it to Idar when I spoke to him in April. That was one of the records for me that really kind of helped reset where black metal was headed. We mentioned Gorgoroth when we started talking, but I feel like Twilight of the Idols, Ad Maiorem, Satanas Gloriam, Liberation and Beyond the Apocalypse, and then Marduk's Plague Angel, like that really kind of that wiped away a lot of the bullshit from the ceiling. Because you'd had bands like The Covenant, for example, put out In Times Before the Light in 1995, very good album. And then by the time we get to like the early 2000s, it's not that it's not that Nexus Polaris was a bad album, but it wasn't. You couldn't reasonably refer to that as black metal anymore, and it kind of seemed like a lot of bands just developed this weird obsession with gothic metal, this sort of watered down industrial, and they just moved away from all the things that made the scene great to begin with.
Yeah, and I also think that some people saw this as or used it also as a springboard to kind of fire their own careers, and make it into something else that they actually wanted to play. Because if you just labeled your music Norwegian black metal at this point in time, you would almost instantly get a record deal from some label somewhere. And if that album sold, then you could then start to push your real musical agenda as well. It could be used in a speculative way as well. So it didn't necessarily work out too well. So that's also why 1349 became a band to kind of just go its own way, basically, and let the test of time stand work in our favor, basically. That's also why it takes so many years and so long time for every album, even since Liberation was recorded in 2001, and we didn't and to get the record deal. Everything has always been a process. I always say when people want to start dealing with 1349, I say that you have to be aware of this, that we are a band that moves very slowly, but we play very fast. So it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah. Well, you did have one exception though, and that was Demon War coming out basically a year after Revelations of the Black Flame. I've got to tell you, so when I spoke to Idar about Revelations of the Black Flame, he kind of laughed, and there was sort of a recognition that it was not necessarily the best received record, and I think there's no disputing that. However, I recently went back and I listened to that record, and there are some absolutely killer tracks on that album. And I actually feel like, in hindsight, it doesn't get nearly as much credit as it deserves. You've got Maggot Fetus, Teeth Like Horns, Serpentine Sibilance. I even love the Misanthropy instrumental. And I don't know whether my ears have just changed, because I remember not necessarily being a big fan when it first came out, but now when I've gone back to it, I'm like, Jesus, I really fucking slept on this album. It's a lot better than I thought that it was.
Well, it's, as you say, in hindsight, you can say that the album was way ahead of its time. If I'm not going to be shy about it, but the main reason for making it was at that point in time we had really stepped up to becoming a touring band as well. We did our first US tour and started really moving heavily into the American market, and toured with Celtic Frost over there, and followed up the next year with a headlining tour, and then 2008 we did Carcass. So Hellfire opened up a lot of doors for us, and then after being on the road for almost 3 years, it kind of was set back, and okay, we need to focus on a new album, and where are we going to go from Hellfire? And I've been very adamant throughout time to not kind of, I never want to make the same album again. I don't want to, my worst nightmare is to become a band that rest on the laurels basically, and release the same album over and over. Oh, we had the success with this, and you try to make a song based on the same formula. That has no appeal to me as a musician. I think as a musician, you want to grow and get better, and you need to challenge yourself. And at the end of your career, you can look back on all your albums, and then you can judge and see which one you think is best. But at the time of releasing an album, if you don't really believe and really feel that the album that you release is by far the best one that you ever done so far in your career, then you shouldn't release it. If you release that album just because you need an album to tour on, or just because you need the money, then your integrity as an artist should be up for debate, I think. But it's, of course, up to every individual that has a career in the music industry. But for us then to start working on a new album, I was like, what are we going to do? I said, well, we are a band that's meeting our fans out on the road, and what was left with me, and as an impression for when people said, "Oh, you're the fastest and most hard-hitting, aggressive band that's out there." Yeah, that was one of the ideas for starting the band, to be a hard-hitting and aggressive band, but I realized that there were a lot of things in the music that people didn't pay attention to, or didn't kind of get as we heard and when we composed it, that the atmospheres in the songs and the mood that every song kind of creates. So the whole idea with Revelations then was to strip away the obvious speed and aggression that we were known for, and just focus on making an atmospherical album. Not the best idea according to people around us.
I was about to say, did you get a lot of opposition to the direction that you decided to take for that when you were recording? Like, you've kind of hinted at it now, but were people listening to this going, you got something good going here with Hellfire and Beyond the Apocalypse and Liberation. What the fuck are you doing?
Well, we were at Candlelight at the time being, and there were some words were exchanged between labels and band, yes. Well, but it wasn't that they didn't like the album. It was just that it was so, I guess it was the it was meant in the way that, are you really sure that this is what you want to do? Candlelight gave us total free artistic freedom. But they said, like, are you really sure that this is what you want to do, this album? Because it's so far from everything else that you recorded. And it's like, is it really? I mean, Liberation is extremely different from Beyond the Apocalypse. I mean, like, it's but it's yeah. I understand what you say, but yeah, this is what needs to happen, and it's stir up a lot of commotion as well. But at the same point, when making that album, also fired up a lot of other inspired Demon Noir like instantly. So it was basically the writing process for Demon Noir started instantly when we had recorded and I had made a material for Revelations. Then it's like Arkona immediately started with Demon Noir. You know, he got inspired by the album, so that's why they came so abruptly upon each other as well. Also to kind of people say, oh, you have to really, this new album is great, can you just record it? And you know how labels try to, oh yeah, I think you lost some fans, maybe we can get some back. It's a money aspect, and it's like, yeah, okay, we'll release it whenever you want it. It's we can record it. So now, but in hindsight, I'm really glad that it happened. I kind of see those two as a double album with. It can be played back to back, basically. So.
I was just about to say you can definitely you can certainly the connection, the parallels between the two without a shadow of a doubt. And I guess, you know, as you're talking about it, what I'm sitting thinking here is it must have been, because as great as Liberation, Beyond the Apocalypse, and Hellfire are, they are, you know, intentionally they were quite creatively constrained to kind of let the shackles off and go, we're just going to do something that's completely wild, experimental, and different to everything that we've ever done, and we don't really care about the consequences. There must be something in that is quite, you know, pardon the pun, but quite liberating.
Well, what is more black metal than doing just that?
Yeah.
That was basically the answer given as well to the people having thoughts and concerns and restraints. It's like, well, this is black metal. This is basically, this is what it's all about. You do what you want, and if you don't do that, then what you're left with, well, some sort of heavy metal. I don't know. It's we're not even here to sell 1 million albums. That was never the intention of 1349. That would just be a bonus. The album, to sell albums for us is and that is a bonus, and we're very fortunate to have people liking our music to such an extent that we are getting label deals and getting offers so we can continue to record music without putting too much compromises into the recording process as well, so that we can try and achieve as much of our vision sonically as possible.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned the back and forth between the band and Candlelight at that time. You know, we're now 15 years on. Do you still have that same back and forth with labels, or have the labels that you've been with subsequently kind of backed off and they kind of know, look, we let them do what they want to do. They have their own ideas, and that's just how it's going to be if you work with 1349.
Well, Revelations kind of
Set the tone.
Kind of deflated that balloon, to put it that way. So they, if a label now said, "No, we don't want to release your album because it's too arty-farty," it's then they don't know the band at all, and then there's no point for us working with them either.
You guys really also stamped home the intent to do whatever you want to do with including that Pink Floyd cover, and it's such a, you guys do such a unique and such a moody take on Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. The only cover I've heard that I feel comes close to that is the one that Runes of Everest did on, which I don't know whether you've heard, but they do a cover of it on an EP that they put out after Exuvia, and I thought that was excellent. And then this one, as I said, comes at it from a whole different angle. But it's a great addition to the record. It kind of feels like that record would never have been complete without that cover.
Well, that cover has a story of its own. We had it was an idea that I pitched to Tom and Martin of Celtic Frost back in, 2004. And there were plans for us to make a split EP together, where we were gonna do like one song each and then one cover each, type of thing. That was the idea, but it never came to life. And when in 2009, when we were working on this album, Celtic Frost was basically falling apart, and Tom was in the studio with me at the point he was sitting in on the album, and then he said, well, he always felt that he always wanted to do this project. At the time was never right for it to be solid and solidified. So he said, well, I'm here right now, let's do it. I said, okay. This is how I had it envisioned. Then we worked from there on, and I did the drums, he did the bass, and I laid down the vocals, did the guitar soundscapes, he did a little bit guitars, and then that's how it happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that you are a multi-instrumentalist. No. as much as, because you play drums in 1349. You don't play guitar?
No. I can make noise on a guitar, but so can anybody. That's I wouldn't say to. I fired myself as a drummer the day that Frost asked to join the band, and I was.
Yeah, but who wouldn't do that though?
I was very happy with that decision in general. I think it's maybe the best decision I ever made in my life.
I was about to say though, I think there's very few drummers that wouldn't go, okay, I'm happy to step back if Frost is saying he'll play drums. I didn't realize that he'd actually asked to join the band.
Yeah, so we shared a rehearsal room with Satyricon at the time, and me and Frost were just good friends, and they had a vacant place in their rehearsal room, so that's where 1349 started to rehearse. So we were rehearsing, and then we had different times where when Satyricon was active, there were times when they should rehearse and we should rehearse, so we kind of divided the rehearsal space between us. And Frost started to come in early when we were started working on the material for Liberation. So he came in early because he needed to warm up and prepare for Satyricon rehearsal. And then I noticed that he started to come earlier and earlier, so it's like, and every time when we finished, it's like, that's really cool, that riff, and as the song developed and he heard more of them, he was like, he really felt that this was something he wanted to be a part of. And I said, well, would you ever consider being our session drummer? I had asked him earlier, because there was, when we were gonna play live, I was just gonna do the vocals. I weren't gonna do vocals and drums. So I said I needed, when we come to the point in our career that we are gonna play live, I need a drummer. So is that something you would consider doing if you had the time? And he said, well, yes, of course I can do that. But then after he started hearing the Liberation material, he came to me one day and he said that I've been thinking, you asked me to be a session drummer. I would say that I would rather like to join you permanently if we can come to an agreement that Satyricon has first priority. All my other time should be devoted to 1349. And I said, well, I can live with that. And then...
were you surprised when he asked you that?
Yes, I was. And I was also extremely proud. And I knew that we were definitely in the right direction. Because he has a very classical music taste, you can say, when it comes to black metal. But his way of understanding music and putting it together and always looking for what's unique in the music and when you're composing music. There are riffs and ideas that are being pitched and people, this is really good. And it's like, come on, are you fucking kidding me? This is just a rip-off. That has no character at all. And it's like, and then you give it a second spin and it's like, oh yeah, he's completely right. He hears things like immediately. And he has extremely good memory as well. So music sticks with him, music and basically everything else as well that he reads or listens to. Everything sticks in his mind. So he's a very good to check things out. So if I have any ideas for a riff or whatever, that has to do with 1349, he's the first one that I just send a demo or a sketch to and say like, listen to this. What's your thoughts on this? And then he'll lay out his opinion, and from there on, I will decide whether or not it's worth going forward with, or if it has enough character to it, so to speak.
I'm sitting here racking my brain thinking, what would be the equivalent on other instruments? I mean, him asking to be drummer for 1349 would have been basically like someone like Samoth asking to be the guitarist for 1349.
Oh, I never thought of it like that, but I always wanted. Before Archeon joined, I approached Blasphemer of Mayhem, and he considered it also. But at that time, Mayhem was extremely busy, so he said that it basically. He basically didn't have the time, and if he would join the band, it wouldn't benefit the band because he would be so much away. And this, I mean, he was also working on Grand Declaration of War, and his career was already good ongoing.
Yeah. We
talked about it many times in after that as well, and it's like, it's maybe one day, your band is really good,
I had him on the podcast as well, and I find him to be an exceptionally interesting character. I remember seeing videos of him when he was touring with Mayhem, and I think this may have been either very late 90s when he just joined the band, or it was right after they released Grand Declaration of War. And the guy asks him essentially like, how does it feel to know that you saved Mayhem? And he's like, essentially said as this young kid, yeah, basically they're lucky to have me. So, but he was, you would look at that and go, oh, the guy's cocky. But I loved the confidence. I just thought, he seemed to have such clear focus at such a young age of what he could do, what he could bring to a band, and what he was going to deliver. And I feel like in that sort of environment, that's the only way that you could possibly survive. Or that's the only way you could thrive.
That's the only way you can be the guitar player of Mayhem.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it. I mean, you can't possibly try to fill those shoes, without being your own self and creating your own career. As a guitarist, you have to walk your own way. That was what Euronymous did, and he wouldn't respect you taking over his part if you didn't. That's you have to do your thing. As long as you play his riffs correct, that's basically what you need to do then to bring on the legacy of Mayhem from there on.
Did you listen to his Black Royal Spiritism album that he put out last year?
I haven't come around to do that yet, but this is the second time that it comes up, so I need to do that.
I would strongly recommend it. I mean, it to me, one of my favorite Mayhem albums is Ordo ad Chaos, and I feel like Ruim, the Black Royal Spiritism, that to me is the natural successor to Ordo ad Chaos. I like what Mayhem did after that. I thought Esoteric Warfare was excellent. I love Demon, but Ordo ad Chaos has always got a special place for me, and to me, like Ruim took that blueprint and really kind of took it to the next level.
Just the fact that Ordo ad Chaos don't have any riffs repeating when he's played a riff and he goes on to the next one, that riff never comes back. Have you noticed that? Yeah.
It is a nightmarish experience, though, that album. I think that's part of why I like it so much. It's got this bizarre, almost like it's like you're locked away in a fucking dungeon somewhere. And, and all this horrible stuff is happening in the dark. You don't quite know what it is, but it's terrible. It's just this claustrophobic feeling. And maybe it's because the very first time I listened to that album, I was traveling in London and I was on the London Underground. So, you know the stench of fucking humanity in the air.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved that record, and Ream, I could not recommend more highly.
I would liked for them to have mastered that album a little bit different, but it is what it is. It's a personal taste it comes down to. I think that it suffers a little bit from the production, that you lose some of the details that's actually in there, and all the way from the guitar work to Attila's vocals, they would have been showcasted even more if with a slight adjustment to the mastering. So
that's fair.
But it's musically and as a composition, I totally agree with you. It's Rune's best work with me. Yeah.
I feel what you're saying about the mixing, but I also think it gives it its character in a way. That being said, are you the same as Svartalv and Idar in that you both of those guys have a real love for like early 80s heavy metal, like, real heavy metal, Wasp and that sort of thing. Are you kind of from the same school of thought?
No.
Oh, really?
No, I don't like that.
Not a fan of Wasp.
You won't see me at the Wasp show, no.
I mean,
I don't
part
have,
of the reason
yeah.
you're going to say sorry?
No, I'm not a huge fan of Wasp, not Kiss, not Iron Maiden. So I mean, I can turn quite a few conversations sour with a lot of metal people.
Well, Iron Maiden, I'm with you. I think there's a couple of Iron Maiden songs I like, but I've never been a particularly big fan of Iron Maiden. Kiss, some songs I really like, but I wouldn't say that I'm end to end a fan of their discography. Wasp, on the other hand, I fucking love. But I do ask because on The Wolf and the King, it's a very aggressive record, but there are some real kind of throwbacks to old school heavy metal on that album. Whether it's leads or whether it's just sort of the way a riff progresses or the way the song is put together.
Yeah, of course.
But then the other thing that immediately struck me about it is, and I mentioned to you at the start of the conversation, I was going to bring this up. It reminded me, and I've gone back and I've listened and compared the two records, but it really reminded me of Beyond the Apocalypse. There's something about the feel of the record that instantly got that just popped that record in my mind as well.
That's interesting.
You were, when we spoke, I remember, and again, obviously you guys were only 3 albums deep or whatever the case may be, but I do remember at the time you were saying that Beyond the Apocalypse was your favorite album. Do you still have an affinity for that record?
Yeah, but it's actually, I said that when you said like liberation, the sound of liberation is what really makes it stand out. And people say like everybody comments on the sound of the album. I said like, well, it's not so much the sound of the album; it's just that the guitars there are extremely distorted compared to other albums. If you could just hear the drums or the bass, I mean. The bass sound is fantastic, but it gets overshadowed. The guitars take a lot of room. But at the same time, I said like that album serves a purpose like that. It's meant to be that way, to be that wake up call of make black metal great again. To put it that way, we were a bit progressive. So that's why we actually made that term, make black metal great again. Some other people have used it since. I don't know. I don't remember who. No. But people say, well, would you ever consider remixing any albums? I said, yeah, that would be Beyond the Apocalypse. And the reason for that is that I always say that every song needs to be justified by the sound, and so every song needs its own mix. You can't just put up a mix and then run the whole album through that same mix. You need to tune every song and make every song sound the way that it's supposed to be to justify the composition of the music. And in hindsight, with Beyond the Apocalypse, I feel that I went over my limitations as a young producer, and I feel that I could do it better now and really do more justice to the songs. And I don't know if I'll ever get around to do it, but if there's one album, if I should do it, that would be that album. With a remix. But the other ones, I mean, like Hellfire, I don't even think I could do that again. Not to mention the costs. I basically burned down a SSL console making that album. So.
When did you develop an interest in the production side of things?
I don't know. It just came natural to me when when we started doing the demos, I was always the one that set up the gear and kind of figure my way around it. I always had a thing for technicalities. So when it came to recording albums, I naturally sat down and took control in the studio. I mean, Sideman has technical abilities, but the other two they play their instruments. That's what they're good at. If something happens with electronically with Arkeon's guitar, I guess I would be one of the first people he asks to have a look at it. So I also have a technical build when it comes to electronics, but it's the combination of having a technical ability and then also to put that into an artistic or an artist's point of view, where you can kind of get the sound that you want. That's a huge advantage when you want to develop a sound as a band, and that's been a goal all the way through. And with the whole idea of the band, that it needs to sound the right way, and that's always been my goal as a producer of the albums as well, to kind of push for that. It wasn't until Massive Cauldron of Chaos that I felt that it took too much away from my enjoying the time in the studio. And we have had Jarrett Pritchard working with us since 2008 as a live sound engineer. And he pitched the idea on one of our US tours that why won't you never bring me to the studio with me and have me record you guys? I was like, why wouldn't we do that? I mean, you know the band, and you also have you've been teaching sound, and you've been being a sound engineer for so many years, and you're a mastering engineer, and you have all these degrees and whatnot. I mean, like you're so heavily overqualified for working with us, so I wouldn't know where to even begin. You know, it's like, yeah, sure. If you feel that you will, let's try that. Come on. And we flew him out to Norway and put him out in the barn at Toten, you know, where we recorded the albums at that time, and and he really thrived out there. And I was happy. I felt that I could leave and come back and have a more drawn back position. I didn't have to sit in there, because I knew that as long as he was there, he would push for the maximum because from everyone in the band, because he knew what we were capable of doing. So I didn't need to sit in on Arkeon's guitars or tour space. You know, it's better to have him there, because not only is he a stellar guitar player, he has an extremely good musical ear as well, and he can hear when you're out of tune and whatnot, and he can basically grab your instrument and show you, do it like this and play it like you mean it, and why don't you do this? And he surpasses me in so many ways when it comes to producing. So I felt it was only right that he took lead on the next two albums, so Massive and Infernal Pathway. But then leading up to Wolf and the King, I felt that I needed to be a little bit back on the horse, so I said that we will do it together this time. Because he always asked me about the Hellfire sound. That was kind of the thing that intrigued him, or captured him into 1349 the first time when he heard that album. He's like, as a musician and especially as an engineer, it's like, how did you make that sound? And then I had to start. That's when I started thinking back, to what did I do in those during those many nights that it took me to mix that album.
He's had a really varied background as far as like the types of bands that he's worked with. Like if you look on Discogs, he's worked with Agnostic Front, he's worked with Lecherous Nocturne, he's worked with Madball. Outside of that kind of musical ear, having that varied background, having worked with bands from death metal, from hardcore, like what does he bring to the table when it comes to 1349 that you don't think anybody else would potentially be able to do?
You also have to mention that he was a part of forming the death metal scene in Florida with his band Eulogy.
Oh, so yeah, that's true.
So, but he has a musical interest, and he cares about the quality in music, and that's exactly what we need as well. So that you can hear quality in music despite the genres, and also despite your musical liking, is a huge advantage in order to develop as a musician and also find inspiration. You don't have to, if you can listen to a genre of music or listen to a song that you typically wouldn't listen to, but you can acknowledge and you can hear the quality of the musicianship that's being put into it, and enjoy it for that, and take inspiration from that. That will broaden your horizon tremendously if you start to do that. That's something that we have found our common ground with, and we spoke about pretty early in our meetings on tour together, and that's also something that all of us in 1349 have done since the start of our careers. That we had a broader interest in music and listened to various genres as well. And you pick certain things, and that's also when you say what Archaon is presented, and you can hear like certain references and stuff. He picks stuff from here and there, and he puts it together and makes these songs, And I will be the first one to say that I don't understand how he is able to do it and where he takes it from, because his musical taste and if he will like put on some music in the tour bus or something, I would most likely I would hate 90% of it, what he puts on. We're so different when it comes to as human beings, basically. That it's it can all be used as something positive, and as a worldview as well, to draw it even further. If people just respect each other, they can accomplish quite a few things together.
100%. If people looked past differences and focused on the things that they have in common, the world would be a far, far better place. But you do have me very curious now. What do you listen to? Now that obviously, now that you've said horrible things about Wasp, and almost borderline unacceptable things, but now what are you into personally?
I didn't say any horrible things about Wasp. I just said that I'm not a fan. There are a Crimson Idol has some a couple of interesting songs on it, but I don't own any Wasp album. I can say. My musical taste goes in or what I listen to. I would say it goes in in waves, and I can go a long time without listening to music as well. I'm not a person that have to listen to music every day. But when I first start, I can get hooked on something, and then most of the times it's I get stuck with one band. So it varies from what point in life. Basically, you talk to me. But there are some bands that always comes back, you know, and Rainbow being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Merciful Fate being one from older bands. Then it develops into Slayer, then Bathory and Celtic Frost, obviously. It goes a very traditional black metal way, you can say, but that's also why I fell in love with the genre as well, because I walked the same ladder as the people that founded the genre, basically. And so it comes natural. But I mean, I even like early Scorpions, you know. It's Taken by Force. Sail Out Choron is a fantastic song, you know? I also like there's a lot of really good and interesting Norwegian jazz from the 70s, slightly into the early 80s, where like Jan Garbarek and Terje Rypdal, they did some fantastic albums and played with some exceptional musicians, and that music kind of put Norwegian jazz on the world map. And at the time being, they were a genre that and they played music that no ordinary Norwegians even knew about. So in a way, they were the black metal bands in the 70s. They were the musicians that went out in the world and performed their music for international fans, and they came home and nobody knew where they were. Kind of what black metal in Norway is as well. That the audience is out in the world. There's not that many people in Norway that are black metal fans, you know. Not compared to what's being played on the radio. That basically black metal isn't played on the radio over here, and we are the number one supplier of it through the world, you know. It's very weird.
Well, I mean, the UK arguably originated heavy metal, and I mean, it'll be a fucking cold day in hell before you hear Black Sabbath on the radio now, or Motorhead or anything like that. So what I did like and I appreciated when I was in Oslo earlier this year was they didn't. I know it's for Inferno, and obviously the hotel was part of it and stuff like that, but they didn't seem to shy away from it at all. You know, I would imagine if they could have an enormous festival right next door to a fancy hotel in London, and if they would still never ever play any of the bands that are there if they're in any way abrasive or use distorted guitars or anything like that. So that I did appreciate about Oslo. But let me ask you this question: have you always wanted to be a frontman?
No, that's why I were the drummer as well, because I heard Ian Pace and Mitch Mitchell, how they played the drums, and the drums were an integrated part in the music as well. The drums were an instrument. It wasn't just a beat, I was like, oh, the drummer can do this. It's highly inspiring, and I like the physical aspect of it, where you coordinate your arms and your feet, and that's how I got interested in music. I focused on the rhythm. I like the rhythm of the music, and that's why I started playing the drums. And when it came to the mission of 1349, it wasn't even like it was never any thought behind it. It was just that, well, this is black metal. Of course I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna be the vocalist of it as well. But we need to make the music first, and then I'm gonna add the vocals after. It was just, how should I put it? And I just knew that this was how it's going to be. It wasn't even like a thought process behind it. It was just, it just was natural that this is what I was going to do. And the voice also was there natural when I started to lay down the vocals and with the music.
I was going to say, like, I mean, the one time I've seen you on stage, and I've seen many videos subsequently, I will be seeing 1349 twice next year, though, because I'll be at Inferno and I'll see you at Fortress Festival as well. But you have a lot of confidence as a frontman. There's you have the right amount, and I mean this in a complimentary way. You got the right amount of swagger on stage to be a good frontman. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll also understand why I'm so particular about that. I don't like shy and retiring frontmen whatsoever. Yeah, I can't fucking stand it. But so I'm curious, with making that transition into the role of being a frontman, it seemed to just really fit you like a glove. Was it easy for you to do that?
I could say no, but I would be lying. It felt extremely natural, and I guess I was like the very first time I went on stage. I wouldn't say I was nervous, but I was a bit excited because we were finally going to start this adventure. But I'm never nervous before going on stage. I have like. It doesn't bother me at all. It's just it's a different mindset. It is a ritual going into it, obviously, but then it's just it's a very natural and primal being that comes out and just do what comes extremely natural and performs black metal as we want it to be, and with that thought and with that performance behind it, I also strongly believe that it will show the viewers and the spectators the confidence that it's being credible. It's not a show that's being put on. It's not an act. It's being done with sincerity and we're being serious about it. It is our art. It's a time for everything. That you need diversity in your life to be a human being. So you need laughter and you need sorrow and you need the ups and downs in your life, but when you do black metal, it needs to be performed in a certain way and with a certain amount of authority. And that comes very natural. And if it doesn't do that, it's not something, I believe that it's not something that you can force. Either you do it, you can tap into that side of you in the mind, and then it will it will project itself through you. You will be the vessel, and I can refer to the new album. Then the storm will be unleashed, basically, and that's how it works for me.
Well, so I do not think we can finish this interview on a better note than that. Thank you so much for your time. Like I said, I'm seeing you twice next year, and I have only one request. You guys haven't played the song since 2013, but you're going to hear me screaming like the girls at the Beatles shows or the Elvis shows if you guys do play this. But Psalm 777 is a masterpiece, and I would fucking love to hear that live.
The only song with Norwegian lyrics?
Yes. Well, there's a specific reason why I like it so much. The breakdown, I actually asked Svartalv about this, and he told me that he'd written it specifically to have that kind of machine gun feel to it. But you know that breakdown after that sort of crazy guitar solo piece, and then you're vocaling, and I don't know the lyrics off by heart, but there's this very like specific rhythm and groove to the way that you're delivering the vocals. It's like it is just genius, absolute genius.
Thank you.
So
well, it's not hard to when you get so good lyrics as you do from him, then you just have to perform, and it's. He makes it easy, to put it that way.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate your time, and I am very much looking forward to seeing you guys play. I'm also looking forward to seeing what happens with the new record, because I've said it before. I think this, to me, feels like the album you guys needed to make. I think it's going to be exceedingly well received.
Well, it was the album that we needed to make, and that's how it is perceived. So I'm very pleased that you also see it the same way. And I've been doing quite a few interviews now, and I always get a feeling from the people interviewing you that to what kind of extent that they really mean what they say about the new album. But on this album, the feedback that we get, it's weird, because when a journalist that's going to interview you just won't stop talking about different types in the music and how they are and what they have like experienced, listen to the album. Yeah, I really hope that the journalists are representing the rest of our fans, and that they will be just as pleased as the people that have heard the album up till now. So,
well, I mean, I can only speak for the people that listen to the podcast, but uniformly, everyone has loved it. I mean, I'll always have a special affinity probably for the record, because I listened to it in Svartalv's car the first time in Oslo. So first trip to Oslo, it's like all the excitement, or everything about the trip made it perfect, perfectly fertile soil for me to listen to the record. But yeah, I love it. I really do. And as I said to you, it reminds me of my favorite 1349 album, which is Beyond the Apocalypse. And that alone, to me, is a victory.
Well, we brought back actually for the European tour that we're doing, starting on Tuesday, October 1st. We actually brought back the first song that Svartalv wrote lyrics for us. So we're going to perform that live.
What song is that?
Blood is the Mortar.
Okay,
from Beyond the Apocalypse. So it was really fun bringing it back. And I remember Frost said, I was really puzzled to see that on the set list, but even listening to it again, and when we started rehearsing it, and it's like it makes perfect sense that this song is on the set list for the tour. So now we have the first non-new album song on the set list you can bring exclusively to your podcast listeners.
There we go. Yeah, I was almost holding my breath there for you to say "Awas Eon," which is my favorite song on the record. But again, you guys haven't played that since like 2019, I think.
We did it on the US tour that we did now in May. So
okay.
Yeah. Oh, that one we done quite a few times, but maybe we will bring that for the UK. We're gonna do something in the UK for next year. That I guess if Fortress Fest has been official, then some more will follow shortly. So.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to be there, and then I know Katie said she's going to come down for that as well. So there'll be a pretty decent crowd there, and also who else is going to be there? Blasphemer.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're gonna. He's playing with his new band.
Yeah. So if hopefully I get to meet you in person, and if I do, it'll be great to have a beer, shake hands, talk shit.
Yeah, very good. And speaking of beer, I guess you know that we also endeavor in a beer adventure with the band. So,
no shit, I didn't know that at all.
Oh no, 1349 has this is a long story, but I'm gonna do the short version. We have released beers since 2015.
Yeah.
Then we made beers with a Norwegian brewery and a US brewery. It's a black ale and a pale ale. But we started this with another Norwegian brewery now again, and we remade a new version of the pale ale and the black ale. But we also released a new beer just called Tree, which is a hoppy triple. So we have 3 beers that you can taste now from the 1349 beer extravaganza Neverment. So
that's very cool. I'm just looking now. I see Surly Brewing Company. I would assume they're the ones in the US. Did your black ale and your pale ale, and then on the 1349 website you've got the. I'm going to destroy the name if I pronounce it. The Hunt Brigeret 1349 pale ale.
The hand brewery, so it's a hand brew.
Yeah.
But the Hond is how you say it in Norwegian. Hond Bryggeriet.
Hond, okay. Like how intimately involved are you in kind of developing that beer, like developing the taste and all that stuff? Or do you say, I don't want to taste the fucking lab disasters. Bring me the final product so that I can approve. Or are you kind of in the weeds from the beginning?
We are extremely involved in even down to picking the hops and how the grains are going to be. 1349 is a band that's just as serious about their beers as they are about their music. So it's not a band that just have a brewery brewing a beer for them. This is a brew that have been brewed by 1349. We have set the recipe, And Frost and Arkona are the ones spearheading this project. And Frost has this unique talent there as well to kind of put different tastes and imagine how they will be together. So he can, if he remembers how one specific hop will taste, and then he can imagine how it will be with other types of hops and spices or whatnot. The beer is missing something, and then he comes up with these crazy ideas. So he is a natural talent for coming up with beer recipes, actually. And we have a very good relationship with Hond Bryggeri and the brewer there. So this is an ongoing project that will just keep on developing. So look out for those beers. Yeah. You can get them if you're going to Inferno. You can order them to our government-driven liquor stores. So. And the one that's closest to the hotel that you stay at also have most of them in stock. So. You just have to buy them before the festival starts, because Wednesday is the last day that they're open. They close during Easter. So. But maybe
I might ask Svartalv to get me some. Hopefully, because next time round I'll definitely be seeing him again as well. I might go like a couple of days early and visit him for a few days.
You should do that. It's really, really lovely up at his place. So extremely quiet and reclusive. So it's just like my cabin. So
yeah. Do you live out in the middle of nowhere as well?
As much as I can, but I'm living in Oslo also. But as soon as I don't have any business to attend to, I find myself in the forest. Yes.
Yeah, no, I live in the countryside over here, so closest house to us is about a mile away, and I love it. I moved here in 2020 during the pandemic, and I will never ever move to the city again.
Oh, that's a sign of getting old. you get smarter, I say.
Yeah, it's for me. I just like space. I don't like living on top of people. I want to be able to, walk around outside without having to worry about, what's going on around me. I want to be able to barbecue and listen to music as loudly as I want and do everything I want without any kind of interference whatsoever. So that's that's my departure point.
I don't like to sit still, so I as long as I can get a chainsaw and do some logging or build something or some sort of construction work or whatever, just use my body for something, then my mind will just start drifting while I do it, and creative thoughts and problem solving will develop itself. So it's kind of a mental state, to do something like that. But I also grew up on a farm as a child, so I guess it comes a bit from there as well.
About to say you're a country boy at heart.
Yeah, I can't sit still either. So
what type of farm?
Oh, just a small farm up in a hillside, really steep hillside. So it's no room for actually growing anything. So it was
I was about to say, but what did you like? What did you guys farm with? Cattle or with?
No, nothing. Didn't have any cattle. So it was mostly, we had forest. So I did some timber work with my father during the winter, and then summer it was just take down the grass and sell that to other farms. So, vacation is to do something different. That's how I brought up. So.
I'll tell you something, just on the topic of cattle, one thing I was very impressed with in Norway was the quality of the meat. I it was my first visit, so I wasn't sure what to expect. And I grew up in South Africa, so I've got quite, specific preferences when it comes to how meat should taste. But yeah, I was massively impressed. I mean, the food generally in Oslo, I thought was fucking top notch. I loved it.
Beef is all grass fed as well, so I guess you taste that. So. It's and it's most of the cattle they also are outside on the fields all summer, and basically if you have the right breed, they don't need to be inside either. They can be out all winter. It should be very, very cold before they need to even go in. So as long as they have just a roof, they can stay out. Just to shelter them from the snow and the wind. And they like it more outside, actually.
Yeah, we don't have, so where we live, we've got horses, but we don't have any cattle. I have said if we ever get into a situation where they start tracking and monitoring how much red meat we eat, then that's when we will become subsistence farmers as far as our food is concerned. I'll get myself one of those No Country for Old Men fucking, those rail guns that go into their brain. I'll do the whole thing if I have to. I'm an animal lover, but no chance will I stop eating meat.
But it's about the welfare of the animal, as you say, and as long as an animal has lived a good life, there's no shame of putting it down and utilizing it. That being said, I also mean that we as human beings are animals as well. So if you lived a good life and there is nothing more for you, then you should be allowed to end it. The difference, of course, is that you, as a conscious being, will make that decision for yourself. But if you have lived with, interacted with your with the animals around you, and you paid enough attention to them as you should, and you will basically know. Is my saying when it comes to real farming, that the old school way of it, and when you had to take care of your cattle, and that was the one that the cow gave you milk so your family could live during the winter, basically, and you had to take care of it because that was your lifeline, and it was a co-pending relationship, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Amongst the old farmers harvesting the land, like you harvest the cattle, you know what I mean. It's like, and there's something actually very powerful about that when you stop and think about it. Like, I'm harvesting the cattle. That's exactly what you're doing. Exactly what you just said now. That they are sustaining you for a period of time, and actually they do taste best if you do treat them well. Like, the best cows I've ever eaten in my life, or best beef I've ever eaten in my life, is Basque country beef, where it's ex-dairy cows. They've lived for
12-year-old dairy
years. Yeah, and they've just come to the end of their life, and then they hit my barbecue. It's it is unbelievably delicious.
Yeah, it's a long way from there to filling up miles and miles of storage space with cattle side by side, and having them force fed in order for even their bones break underneath them, and they lie in their own shit just for the money of it. Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you there.
So so a bit more conscience about choosing what to eat and where it comes from. Just with music, it's quality over quantity, and that's. I guess we come to the part now that old men are talking. So.
Well, I can tell you something. This is going to be a first. I don't think there's a single interview anywhere, unless you're going to tell me otherwise, where Ravn of 1349 is talking about cattle and farming.
Well, I don't know. I mentioned several interviews that I grew up on a farm, so it's it's a natural part of my upbringing. So it formed me to become who I am, and I guess also my taste in music. So awesome. It's a part of the whole picture.
Well, brother, like I said, thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
I really appreciated this, and I am very much looking forward to, as I said, hopefully shaking your hand in April next year.
Bring the struggle, cost of life, the fluid
You just heard The God Devourer, the band, of course, unmistakably 1349, featuring my guest this week, Ravn on vocals. Massive thank you to him for his time, and a huge thank you to Katie at Suspiria PR for getting this set up. What a fucking great guy. And hopefully I'm going to get to meet him in person and maybe do an in-person conversation either at Fortress or Inferno next year. We'll have to see what happens. Though it's never easy to get something set up when you're at those festivals because everybody's super busy. There's a lot happening as far as prep is concerned afterwards. When they've played a hour set, no one's interested in having another hour-long conversation with me. But we'll see what happens. Either way, just being able to drink a beer with a dude would be fucking brilliant. You also need to check out, if you've not done so yet, episode 220 of Into the Necrosphere, because I had Arkona and Svartalv on for that one, and we spoke about this album. That was filmed on location in Norway. So, real highlight of this year for me, and one that got fantastic response from the Legion. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure that you check it out. It's been a pretty goddamn fantastic weekend so far, I've got to say. The Springboks have won the rugby championship for the first time since 2019, and for the vast majority of my listeners, I know that means nothing, but either way, you need to start watching rugby. And then secondly, on the spur of the moment, I reached out to my good buddy Nathan Glover of Graveir, Longing More, and of course one of the main men over at Gutter Prince Cabal, and asked him whether or not he would join me for my weekly news rant. So really all that's left to say before we start that is the following. If you find yourself butthurt and blubbing over the fact that I said your favorite band sucks, or a particular album that you're especially fond of isn't all that great, then it's time to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
Let's quickly talk about Gutter Prince Cabal, because I've loved watching the slow, steady progress that you guys have been making, and the quality of the releases you guys have been putting out is sensational.
Yeah, look, we've been pretty fortunate on that front. I don't know when we set out, I guess, to do it, we had any idea of exactly how it was going to pan out, but yeah, look, I've always made the argument that our region has some of the best stuff going, but I guess we don't necessarily view it that way all the time. But what cemented it for me was listening to other people from not our region talk about some of the bands that we've got. I'm like, okay, well, this is just like a issue, I guess, with self-perception. So I think anything that helps put those artists on the map, and there's plenty out there. So really, if the bands weren't there, we would have problems as far as releasing quality stuff. So I guess they do most of the work on that front. But next weekend we've actually got our second live event that we're hosting, which is Fire, Midnight Odyssey, Burden Man, and Stellar Remains. So for them, it's kind of one of their first gigs. So what a lineup to get onto, right? So they'll be down in Sydney, so I've got to fly down for that. So we'll do the live thing on and off. We don't want to overcommit because really the goal is to release people's records. But it's a fun thing to do, and I guess just again shows that we're pretty committed to trying to make for lack of a better word, the kind of scene that we would want to be playing in and have for ourselves. Because no one's going to come and open their wallet and do it for us. So people have to jump in and make the conditions they want, and that's pretty much what we're trying to do.
Well, that's the thing that I really admire and enjoy about the Australia scene. There's at least a thread within the scene that's very tight knit. And you've got people that do different things, bring different strengths to the table, kind of like you were describing Gutter Prince Cabal just as a whole when you were getting it started, and that then ultimately leads to you guys being able to be quite self-sustaining, and then you add to that a tremendous amount of talent that you have within the region, it's very cool. I really love, as I said, I really love the evolution that I've seen, and I think you mentioned Stilla Remains, sensational. Yeah, and don't want not to overuse that word, but really, really good. And it's like there's a concerted improvement with every single thing that you're putting out. Has anything, like, from when you guys started and set that original vision, has anything changed or evolved since then?
I think as far as like the actual mission statement goes, not really. We've kind of stuck to what we've done and really tried to, keep the quality control high as far as, we're obviously not a big label, not working on a massive budget, but make sure that we do everything to the highest standard that we can for the releases. Really, the thing that has changed the most, I suppose, is in the beginning, obviously, I had to put that long more EP up to sort of open the door because no one wants to respond to your emails when they don't know who you are. But I guess what we found is once we got that up and running and got the first few releases under our belt, it's not that struggle of trying to, I guess, follow up and try and get people to convince them to do a release with your label. Now we get plenty of people approaching us, and seeing if they can, release something through the label, and we help as many people as we can. That's always the struggle. There's not enough hours in the day to help everyone, and there's probably a few things that we've had to pass on that I wish we didn't. But it's just a matter of time and budget. But I think some of the things that we have found, just the doors are easier to open. It's easier to get people to review stuff. It's easier to get people to respond to anything that you inquire. And I guess you do get approached sometimes when you're not expecting to. So I think on the podcast, when you had Jason on from Psychroptic, he'd mentioned the label, or the guys from the Amenta have kind of mentioned the label when we've caught up with them in passing when they sort of were playing last time. So it's just things like that where people give you a little bit of a nod, which just kind of encourages you to say, okay, well, what we're doing, we're trying to go about it the right way and with good intention, and that shows we're on the right track because the people that people are, I guess, paying attention to it and keeping an eye on it and some interest in it. So, if those people are approaching us and saying, look, I don't like what you're doing and I think all your releases suck and you should stop doing it, you'd have to reconsider.
Have you not had a couple of people like that? Because there's always
really,
some fucking dork behind a keyboard who is going to take it on himself to cast aspersions at people doing more than they will ever do in their entire lives.
Yeah, to be honest, we haven't as yet, but look, that can come with it too. But I'm not too fussed, and I think we're all pretty clear on what it is we're trying to do, and we'll let the results sort of speak for itself. And we don't have anything to prove or anything to hide. So it'll be what it is. But generally speaking, no, it's been pretty good. So cross fingers.
I'll tell you something else. Just you mentioned Jason, but very often, at least it's been my experience, that in smaller scenes or more isolated scenes, some of the bands that make it big tend to kind of forget where they came from, and they enjoy their newfound success and leave the rest of the scene behind. Jason, David, Joe, everyone in Psychroptic, they really have reinvested in the scene, whether it's doing their own projects, pushing other projects, playing in other, guesting on other records. I again, to me, that is incredibly commendable. And obviously, I know certainly Jason and David, and those guys, as far as I'm concerned, are champions, men amongst men. That also, to me, that's kind of, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that sort of gives you a feel for the quality of person that you deal with in the Australian metal scene.
Yeah, I think some of that does come about, just due to it being small. So everything's hard. So if I want to, go play in, Sydney, which is probably the next capital city along, that's a good 12 hour drive. So everything's a bit of a long way unless you're going to fly. So it's not very profitable. You're going to, you'd be lucky if you get a bed. Maybe you can afford to splash out on a hotel. You may get to eat a proper meal, or otherwise you'll be eating McDonald's. So it's all pretty, like, everything sort of relies off knowing people, and being able to call on those people when you're on tour and doing stuff. So just for example, the Ulcerate show up here in Brisbane, the guys from Pestilential Shadows were doing the support for that. And I just reached out and said, look, you're coming up. If you need somewhere to stay, cool, beds for everyone, and everyone will get fed and have a shower, which is a luxury when you're on tour. So, but vice versa, if we down in Sydney, we've always got somewhere to stay, and that hospitality works both ways. So, same thing with logistics. If anyone needs gear and they're like, look, can you organise this gear for me? You usually have people that do that, and they're the people that's kind of how those circles form, to be honest. You don't really have it's not the luxury of being able to jump in a van and tour and be, like, if you don't have any friends, it can be a pretty lonely job. So if you're someone that people enjoy being around and like working with, then you kind of just become part of that network, right? And then everything becomes a lot easier. Shows are easier to organize. People want to work with you. And you've always got someone to give you a hand. I think that cooperation, really comes just from the logistics of trying to be a band in somewhere like Australia.
Okay, well, I want to hear more about that, and I also want to talk more about your own musical projects. But let's listen to some music first and foremost. So we're on metalstorm.net as always, and the first track we're going to listen to comes our way by way of Belgium metalers Butcher, who have shared a new song, Blessed by the Blade, as part of their, it says here, forthcoming album on Foul of Tyrant Wing. That comes out on October the 25th via Osmose Productions. I mentioned it at the start of this episode, but a big congratulations to our friend Cheyenne and Trivax for getting signed to Osmose Productions. I think Sheriff Scandado said it best, as Revelation Records are to hardcore, Osmose Productions is to black metal. So yeah, I think it's a perfect fit for them. And I'm just extremely pleased that Trivax is getting that degree of recognition. I may have an inkling of what the next record is going to sound like, and I think people are going to be completely blown away.
Yeah, look, I'm super happy for them, so I'm really pleased to hear that. Cheyenne's a good guy. A couple of times I've had some interaction with him, and obviously observing on the podcast and the story of where they got to where they are. And look, they've put the work in. So if you do that and you're consistent, someone's going to pay attention. And I think, hopefully that's a really good home for them.
100%. And, it's a recurring theme on weirdly enough on this episode, because I spoke to Ravn about my friendship with Svartalv. Cheyenne was also another one of those guys where literally first episode that he was on, I just hit it off with him. It's you have people that you get on with well, people that you're friendly with, but there's that kind of rare breed person that you just hit it off and become friends with straight away, which at least at my age is not easy. And mate, you breathe that rare air as well. So
honored, and likewise, of course.
Yeah. Well, actually, just as a side note, because we've spoken about it before, I finally managed to kill that fucking bitch. And I'm talking about I am Melania, Blade of Mikola. I couldn't fucking believe it when it finally happened. I was like, I knew I had like 2 or 3 more shots to give her, and I saw, Jesus, I've got like 5 or 6 more healing potions, and I've got like full health bar. I'm like, I'm actually gonna fucking do it. Still not defeated Radagon and the Elden Beast, but I'll get there. I get to the Elden Beast pretty easily, but the problem is it takes a bit out of me to get there.
Yeah, no, it's yeah.
And by the way, just so everyone knows what we're talking about, sorry to talk over you, nerd shit, Elden Ring. So my other obsession aside from black metal and death metal.
Well, you need to do that to get to the expansion as well. And look, I don't want to upset you, but on Mikla, second attempt.
Jesus, mate. The thing is, what pissed me off the most about it is, and I think it became like a psychological thing because on this playthrough, I was mowing down bosses in first go, like Commander Nile, like basically everyone. It was first or second attempt. She's just the wall. And I am actually already at the DLC, but what I find there is the impression I have taken from the DLC is they expect you to be on fucking New Game 9 in order to be able to get through that comfortably. So, but anyway, let's not bore people with that shit. If you play Elden Ring, you're gonna understand why. Generally speaking, if you meet somebody else who plays it, you're kind of dying to talk about it. But without further ado, we've waited long enough. Let's hear what "Blessed by the Blade" by Butcher sounds like. What do you think?
So initially, it sounded like it was a bit rough and ready, and I appreciated that. And then the keyboard started, and I was like, "Fuck me, here we go. This could go either way." And then the vocals started, and I was off the bus.
Yeah, the vocals are definitely the weak link in the chain. I think for this style of music, it can make or break the band. I mean, they seem to be going for something similar to what you find from Midnight or Bewitcher. I think in my opinion, Midnight are the gold standard when it comes to that style of music right now. But yeah, the vocals just they almost sound like they're bordering on being parody.
Yeah, and this is an issue I actually have with a lot of like black thrash type stuff too, where black thrash can go one or two ways. It can be mean, like that Iron Witch release we did. I really liked because it just stayed mean, didn't try and joke around. And then I know there's some people are really going to hate this, but when I'm hearing some kind of black thrash type thing and someone does like a King Diamond yell, I'm just like, one way train to fuck off, Bill. Like, am I a joke to you? What is this? Like,
Yeah.
You forget the black metal bit. I guess I like stuff to be mean and nasty generally. So it just pulls me out of it. And yeah, this was shades of that as well, where I like the fact that it was rough and raw, but then yeah, I think as you said, the vocals kind of lean into almost not quite at King Diamond level, but it was enough.
Yeah, the riff is actually pretty decent. Instrumentation, broadly speaking, is good. They've got a good drummer. But it's one of those things where it's relatively inoffensive. If somebody played it at at a fucking barbecue or something, you're not going to go, man, turn off this garbage immediately. But I would never willingly go out and listen to the band. It's not it's not something that I'm going to have on my new release Friday list and go, I must prioritize hearing this today. Okay, we'll move on. So let me hear your thoughts on Gaerea, because I'm pretty confident we've spoken about them in the past because they featured on best of lists. I sort of have had my own journey with this band. and I'll probably reiterate it in a little bit, just for people that didn't see the conversation that I had with Drew Goth about this. But yeah, what are your thoughts on them in 2024?
Yeah, so I guess initially I was relatively I didn't mind some of the first couple of releases, and I feel like they did get a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of shit at the beginning for not being true. But to me, that for not being cult enough or what have you. But I think the thing for me is they had always played it with a fairly straight bat. They never really tried to make anything a joke or seem like they were jumping in and like borrowing black metal for the sake of, like Sleep Token is just like Imagine Dragons with borrowing black metal's aesthetic. Like if you took the masks and the weird stuff off, it just sounds like Imagine Dragons. It's just, whatever. So they weren't really doing that. But I guess the more recent stuff has kind of taken a bit more of a different direction. I think the other stuff did have high budget, but this is like super polished and it almost polishes all the rough edges off. And that last video clip just looked like someone had let Maguire loose in like a Jamiroquai video. I wasn't really a fan of the interpretive dancing. So where they're headed is not really where my interest lies. Let's put it that way.
I don't know whether you recall what I said to Austin, but my trouble with what I see from everything that they've put out so far of Coma, I actually thought that World Ablaze, which I think was the first single, thought that was pretty good, and Hope Shatters I didn't mind either. Totally agree with you that last one missed the mark. We're going to hear what Suspended, the new single, sounds like in a second, but I feel like the problem that I'm seeing here is they were a band that built pretty impressive reputation and back catalog with Unsettling Whispers and Limbo, two albums that were pretty widely loved. I genuinely enjoyed them both, and I liked Mirage as well. I thought Mirage, it's not necessarily stuck with me for as long as Limbo did, but again, good record, good build. 3 albums in, steady fan base, and I really believe post Mirage, and I if I could travel back in the DeLorean and they asked me again, do you still think they could be one of the biggest bands in black metal? I'd say absolutely. The problem is, I kind of feel like they have, it's like they're shooting for their black album, but they've fired their load a little too early. That's the vibes I'm getting from Coma. And I think the biggest problem for them is that it's not just a case of they're not getting extreme love or extreme hate one way or the other. What I'm detecting is actually an awful lot of indifference. And that's a very, very big problem, because that's not something that you can come back from very easily. You can put out a record that your fans universally pan, but it's hate is still an emotion. If you think about St. Anger came out, loads of people despised it, but they were still queuing around the block to hear Death Magnetic. And that's because they were, the opposite of hate is love. And I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be too philosophical about this.
It's still a response, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's still a response. Indifference is, I don't give a shit what these guys do after this. I don't care anymore. That's the territory I feel like they're going into, and I think at the core of that is this idea that they can transcend the black metal genre, and that people are going to care. And the problem is they won't. The music that Gaerea make is too extreme, even watered down as it is for the new material. It's too extreme for anybody in the mainstream to care about. You're not going to get the average fucking. I mean, maybe they're trying to go for the Sleep Token crowd. I would argue you're not going to get the average Sleep Token fan to buy into this. It's just not. It's not something that is meant for the mainstream, and they're trying to take it into the mainstream, and that's where they're falling apart. So you piss off your existing fan base to try and win over new fans, and maybe you're going to win over some, but I think you're going to end up losing far more on the other end.
Yeah, I think it's I guess, the production value's really gone through the roof. And I think when you sort of mention aiming to be the sort of biggest band in black metal, it's almost a thing of going, well, they might be the biggest black metal band to people who aren't into that stuff. So I think there is like you can see there's a bit of an aim for some more crossover appeal. But what's the trade-off for that, to your point? So look, mate, I did see a few comments of people like, whoa, is this black metal? Like, I've never heard it before. And this is cool. So it might be a gateway, for some people to dive into it. And you could see, look, could they do it potentially? But in the process, yeah, will they be, a black metal band, I suppose, where when someone mentions that that's their band they like, you're just like, oh, we don't need to keep talking. Like, yeah, I can tell you're in training with. And it's not a not. Look, if that's what they want to do, then okay. Like, I'm not, but it is a hard road to tread. So, and for me, I guess, yeah, where they're going is less interesting to me, to be honest. So it sounds like we're probably in a similar mind.
I just feel like you lean, when you have had a lot of success with something, I'm not suggesting you should repeat yourself, but don't go away from what brought you to the dance, right? Evolve, adjust, improve, experiment, but always lean into your strengths. It's a little like, if I had to use a fighting analogy when I think of Gaerea, I would say they're like a fighter that made their bones as a grappler, and then they had success with one or two fights where they, knocked somebody out, and then they fell in love with their striking completely. And, we can probably name a couple of fighters that were like that. You see the steep decline of their career come very soon afterwards.
Yeah, so I guess time will tell, but yeah, at current trajectory is not necessarily one that I'm on board with. So
No.
I guess we'll see.
Well, we'll see what happens at the end of the year. Their albums have always been splattered across every, best of whatever year it was list. I mean, I can tell you right now, I've got my contenders list is up to 46 that I need to whittle down to the top 30 that their record doesn't feature. So, but now, that being said, we could also suspend it, and I could go, oh Jesus, I'll change my mind completely. So
yeah, now that'll happen because we've ragged it out a little bit.
Yeah, let's hear what the song sounds like. Is it just me, or could the first 45 seconds to a minute of that song have just come straight out of a Paradise Lost track? I was almost like I could hear Nick's voice coming in, and when I say Paradise Lost, I'm talking like mid 2000s Paradise Lost, which I like, but doesn't necessarily have a place for me in in the sound of a band like Gaerea. But I got strong Paradise Lost mid 2000s vibes in the first minute of that song.
Yeah, look, I think there was definitely a bit of that in there. I guess the rest of the song for me, I don't necessarily recognize a lot of black metal in there.
Mm.
It kind of had more of a there was bits of other stuff in there. It was almost like that there was more chugs in there to an extent. So it almost gave me a vibe of maybe more like metalcore or hardcore
Mm.
influence, um, mixed with a tiny bit of something else. But yeah, I wasn't really getting a lot of black metal. And I think the other thing, which has been my common consistent criticism with the newer stuff, is that uh, for me, black metal is definitely a release of energy and aggression, and that as I said, it's almost polished to the point. It's a polished to a sheen, without letting much raw emotion come through. So it doesn't really, it kind of just is there. It doesn't really impact, impact the in a visceral way for me. And the switch of vocalist, I'm really not a fan of.
Mm. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the lack of emotion. There's not enough convincing emotion coming from this track for it to really land well with me. It's better than the previous single, I think, but I still feel very indifferent to it. And this is coming from someone who, like I said, I was a very big fan of this band. I mean, when we saw them live at Fortress, I was very impressed. So I'd had very high hopes for them, and I just think they've made some of the wrong decisions. I think they've tried to go down a path that they weren't necessarily ready for, and that I don't necessarily think is going to do them any favors in the long run. That's my ultimate take on them.
Yeah, look, I mean, I really didn't, I quite enjoyed the earlier records. And yeah, it's just interesting to see where bands will go. I mean, they'd always been fairly, polished production wise, but I think just over time that the polish is maybe. And look, again, I could see that that could pay really, big dividends for them potentially. But is it what I want out of when I'm looking for music? It's not. So I mean, more power to them if it does pay off. But yeah, it's probably not something I'm going to keep close tabs on, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, next headline, Marduk announced shows in Armenia, Georgia, and Kazakhstan. I'm assuming they're still personas non grata in Australia. Or at the very least, you can attempt to set up a Marduk show and then wait for 5 weeks until it gets protested and cancelled.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like, to be honest, they've played here a bunch of times, so I don't know how much. I feel like it's a little bit of a easy one to go for. But the big problem I have with stuff like that is people are sometimes digging through the trash to go, this person 20 years ago was in the same room as this person. And, like, meanwhile, bands like Goat Moon or whatever exist, which are flagrantly outright, like, doing a few funny salutes. I'm like, well, why would you go to all the effort of like digging through bins and trying to play 6 degrees of separation and pick a band like that when you haven't done the job that's in front of you, which would be really, if you were serious, to try and address, the bands that are that's what they're all about. And really, when you look at it, it's like, okay, well, if I go for a big target, I can draw attention to myself. And you go, well, okay, are you serious about your mission, or are you serious about drawing attention to yourself? Because those two things are not the same. Like,
Well,
I don't think
to me, it's the gamification of activism. These guys think that they're going to get kudos by, quote unquote, taking down, a band like Marduk. Or things, as you say, that they will have to go back 2 decades to try and find anything on them. At a time when black metal was known for being, as politically controversial as possible. I just think it's absurd, and I think I mentioned it last week, and I will stick by this. This is the one hill I will die on. These people are not interested in this strain of thinking. Is not interested in coexistence. They're interested in acquiescence. Unless you believe and agree with every single thing they say, as far as they're concerned, not only do they question your right to existence, your well-being, your financial, otherwise off the table. It's just a nasty, spiteful, disgusting, and childish way of approaching life, as far as I'm concerned. And it's, to each their own. Those are not the kinds of people that I have any interest in dealing with.
Yeah, look, and it's an interesting one, like how I guess really where it's going to land in the grand scheme of things. But I think people would have less issue again if they're serious in dealing with the stuff that's flagrant and right front. But to be honest, if people are that serious in their ideology, usually you don't really want to spend time with them anyway, because you get in a room and they get the equivalent of Tourette's and just start being a pain in the neck. So just even from a social standpoint, you're like, well, why would I want to hang out with someone like that? Ugh. So, but if you're seeing people under every corner, and I think we've sort of seen some first-hand examples where they go, oh, this band has a tank on the cover. Are they sketchy? And I'm like, now some of the research, that the standard that they will hold people to in many cases is super high. But then when you look at the threshold for their evidence to, call people a whole bunch of names or do things, it's very low and sometimes really poorly researched. So there's a bit of hypocrisy at play. Does that mean that there's not some people out there who, are dickheads and you don't really want to spend time with? And probably, yes, there are, but it's as untrue as it is true. But you could say the same thing if you pick country music, if you pick tennis, if you went to the tennis club and quiz people what they thought of something, probably at some point someone's going to say something you don't agree with, and is probably
a lot of them far right types hanging out at the tennis club, mate. That I know for sure. So,
yeah, but
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. You can within within reason, you can find something quote unquote sketch just about everywhere you go if you look hard enough. And I think the thing that's most ridiculous is when you not only hold people to this crazy 2024 standard for things they did in 1994, but you then expect that they should come out and apologize. When they do apologize, that's not good enough. And you then throw this very broad-based blanket statement at them. They need to do the work. Well, okay, what is the work? Define the work. Because from what I see, I spoke about Phil Anselmo last week. I think nothing short of the dude offering himself in public is going to be good enough for these people.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, who gets to decide that standard? I did see one ages ago. I think it was everyone's friends at Metal Sucks that went, we're no longer giving Emperor a pass because Bart Eithon killed someone. Like, well, one, he went to prison and served his time. Two, he's not made a big deal of it afterwards and has seemingly not reoffended or done anything. Does it make up for what he did? Well, you can be the judge of that from an emotional standpoint, but also Emperor not really an active band anymore. You've missed the boat by like 20, 30 years. So what is, who are you to determine whether, more than the Norwegian justice system as to whether that person, is fit for consumption or not? And
is there not also with guys like him, and apologies, just while this thought is in my mind, is there not also an irony that with guys like him, the people that are dumping on him are the same people that have ACAB posted in their Twitter profiles? They talk about defunding the police. They want prisons abolished. So what exactly do you want? You want prisons abolished. It's not enough, but it's not enough for you that someone that committed a crime went to prison, served their time, came out, and exactly as you say, didn't reoffend.
Yeah, well, that would be the model of what you would want someone to do, right? Is to not reoffend and rehabilitate. So it's this weird thing of I think a lot of people are deeply unserious about really when they say I'm against this or I'm against that or I'm for free speech and these people are against it or whatever it is. Usually, all they want is to be able to do what they want and punish the people that they don't like. And it's true either side of the political spectrum. People pull the same tricks because ultimately what people want is power of some description, power and influence. And that brings me to just another point on it while I think of it. I did notice there's this I did think about it. I was like, why is it always this thing with bands and so forth? Because there's people who are far more powerful that have, pretty suspect ideologies. But we tend to pick on, and the same thing with comedians, like why comedians? But if you look at it, these people don't have a lot of cultural capital or social capital or social power. So it's easy to attack a soft target because there's not really any consequence for doing it. It's pretty minor, it's not like the world's being run by like, the members of
Marduk.
like Beherit or something. Like, yeah, they're not
Yeah.
sitting in the Parliament of Norway, running the world. They're just people driving around a van who maybe get to eat McDonald's if they're lucky. So there's really no consequence to making those attacks, and there's really like a lot of visibility to be gained. The same thing with comedians, they're low sort of cultural capital. They're not big famous actors. They're not politicians. They're not anything like that. They don't wield any real power. So again, you can make an attack on someone, get a lot of social points for it with no real risk. And it's funny, I guess we talk about not punching down, but to some extent it is kind of punching down because you're picking someone who's not high on the totem pole because you can bully them to an extent. So it's an interesting thing to think about.
It's as I said, to them it's submission or acquiescence to their way of thinking. Otherwise, all bets are off. And that's why I admire people like Dave Chappelle. He never ever backed down. Never said, never. I mean, I don't know whether he apologized for anything that he's ever said, but he certainly didn't show any real remorse. But anyway, let's get back to music. Spiritbox premiere, Soft Spine music video. I don't actually really even know Spiritbox all that well. The main interest in me even mentioning that article, and we can listen to what the song sounds like, but I don't know whether you're a fan of Chelsea Wolfe. I don't know whether we've ever spoken about that.
I'm a fan of Chelsea Wolfe, yes.
My infatuation with her is reasonably public, but it's have you heard those tracks that she's been recording at home and sticking on YouTube?
I haven't got to those yet, no. So
Mate,
I'll make.
and I have to play you something, and for anyone that's listening to this, when I say, sorry, I'm gonna just have to log into this. So this is the Spiritbox cover she did. The song is Cellar Door. Again, I don't even know what the original sounds like. Just because I'm a fan of hers, I picked this up. But yeah, I'll give you a 1 minute taste, and you tell me what you think.
Time is always there to catch my fall. I carry it in something beautiful. I turn the key into my burial. I sell a door into my open soul. Close a loophole. So hard, starting over, loop is closed, just to go to the depths, call me transform my death into a conduit.
That to me is goosebumps. I just absolutely fucking love it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I really like it. So I guess for me, when I'm not listening to it, when we were just talking about, just to link it back to the Gaerea stuff, we mentioned like music having power that kind of leaps out at you. This gives you that feeling where you can feel it come through. And I know you mentioned about like cell phones showing up imperfections. I can hear some there, but the funny thing with imperfections is what people would call imperfections, other people would call character. It makes things, if you polish all the edges off stuff, you remove some of its emotional content. And I think by not doing that, and I don't know if you like, I'll sometimes watch a channel called Gems on VHS, which is really just a lot of like folk country sort of type stuff, but it's all recorded live and just basically like this, but with good equipment. But those performances are as raw as you can get, and there's some power in some of those that people would kill to get, where it's just one person with a guitar and their voice and whatever's going on around them. But there's power that leaps through that. And that comes from, I guess, not having anything to hide behind, not having those studio tricks there for you. In some ways, I feel like that's the thing that we try and channel with black metal or extreme. You're really trying to channel that raw emotional content and have that delivered. Now, the way we do it's slightly different, of course, but this is channeling that same vibe, and I think that just comes from the stuff that people might call imperfections is actually character.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I say when I mention imperfections, I think that's probably what I meant. It's like you're not hearing her go like wildly off key, or there's not this big distinction between what she sounds like in studio versus what she sounds like recording it. Yeah, but she's got a ton of these on her TikTok and on her YouTube channel. You were also raving about that Emma Ruth Rundle Thou split EP. Well, not split EP, like the collab album that they did, and I never listened to it, shamefully. And after I got thoroughly overdosed on the new Chelsea Wolf, I finally went and I checked that out. Holy balls!
Yeah,
I mean, you were you were not wrong, mate. That is a masterpiece.
We were fortunate enough. Emma Ruth Rundle and Chelsea Wolf both played together at Dark Mofo, so there was 2 sets from them both, and they both joined up to do some songs as well. And yeah, it was a really great show. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, look, to be honest, I actually prefer the more organic stuff of Chelsea Wolf. I find the electronic stuff a bit less engaged with. So the newest album I was a bit less into. I think Pain is Beauty is another one where I'm a bit less into it than like Apocalypsis and stuff like that, or the stuff that's a little bit more organic sounding. And it's just that feeling of being present. If I feel like I'm in the room with you when you're doing whatever you're doing, there's just more connection there. Whereas I feel like once it gets very electronic, there's a disconnection, which can be good, but it doesn't speak to me as much.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by that. I like so if you think about that, Birth of Violence to me is a phenomenal record, absolutely fantastic. But then again, as I said, I don't actually think there's a single album that she's made that I don't love. And the new one, we were talking about contenders for the top 30, that's on for sure. And it would take a pretty significant effort to push it out of the top 10. I think it's flawless. I absolutely love it. But anyway, we did say let's hear what Spiritbox actually sounds like. I have no idea what their music is like, so let's give Soft Spine a quick listen. No, that sounds like My Ruin 2, shitter than the last.
Yeah. If you took everything that I hated about modern metal music and condensed it into a steaming brick, that would be it. So I feel like they probably need to send Chelsea Wolf a royalty check for because she turned Hurt into gold. with
I'm
whatever she
about to say
on.
she spun a fucking steaming poop into pure gold.
That's it. You could you could build a few huts with the bricks that were bricks of turd that were unloaded just in that short minute.
Yeah. Let's quickly talking about gold. Let's talk a bit about Gaerea. So not Gaerea, fucking Graveir. Sorry, I know I almost almost insulted you there. Um, so you guys have been hard at work on the new record. Obviously, we've premiered a new track on Into the Necrosphere, which I thought was fantastic. But what's happening with the band as things stand right now?
Yeah, well, I guess we came off that show with Triumph of Death, but we'd sort of been rehearsing every week to get this album over the line. I feel like we've had so many false starts with it just for a whole host of reasons. As I said, there was like natural disasters, divorces, death, like the whole work. So we was like lineup changes. So we were just like, that's it. We have to push it. So we've been hard at it. We've finished the drums, so they're all tracked. I've got those sitting at home on my computer. In the next few weeks, we're going to start tracking the bass and guitars, and then we'll be I'll knock the vocals over, and hopefully early next year we'll see that one. I don't think the next one. I think we've already started on the next one, so let's put it that way. The next one you're not going to be waiting for. It's a very weird span of events that led to the delay that we've had with this one, and I think we're all very much over it.
Well, as you
I
say,
don't think anyone.
so social and personal issues that kind of drove that.
Oh, and I mean, we had COVID in the middle of that too, so there was a few
Yeah.
years where just nothing was happening. But yeah, we're all super enthused now, and I think people are going to, well, hopefully people will enjoy the new record. It's a lot meaner. I think some of that anxiety and that frustration is baked into that record, so we'll see what people make of it.
Mm. And then your hardcore project that you were working on, is that are we going to hear that at some point soon?
Yeah, so that one's probably coming sooner. So vocals, everything's tracked for that. It just needs to be. I need to get the mix back. I'll send that off for mastering, and yeah, get the artwork done and get that one out. So it'll be interesting. I think it's maybe too black metal for hardcore people, and maybe too hardcore for black metal people. So both groups may hate it, and then my job will be done. So. But look, it was good fun. It was a fun project. I enjoyed it, and I think it doesn't really sound like too much of anything else. So we'll see what people make of it.
Big thing, key with hardcore, mate. It's got to have the breakdowns. For as long as it's got the manly breakdowns and it's got that scumbag beat, the sort of mid tempo scumbag beat that I love so much. It's will always be a winner. Plus no singing of any kind.
There's definitely no singing, so don't worry about that. Yeah, I think the vocal approach is going to be a bit more interesting for hardcore people. But we had people from Resin Tomb and Descent to keep us on the straight and narrow as far as making sure that it wasn't just another black metal record as well. So I think I'll be curious to see what people make of it. But I enjoyed it.
No, I'm looking forward to hearing it, mate. Let's check out another track. So Sólstafir are streaming a new track called Black Rocky. They've got a music video for it as well. It says here, Sólstafir are revealing a Bowen Stains directed official video for Black Rocky, the newest preview tune of their next long player, Hin Helga Vol, that drops on November the 8th, 2024. I have really enjoyed everything that I've heard of this album so far. I thought the first single they put out that was a little more, black metal orientated, a little meaner than the stuff they've done in a while. I thought that hit it out of the park. And then some of the other more experimental stuff they've put out since that I really enjoyed too. So this is an album I didn't think I was going to look forward to as much as I am. But November is becoming an increasingly stacked month for crazy good releases. Obviously, the Panzerfaust track that we played last week, that's November the 22nd. No question that's going to be one of the contenders for the best album of the year. This one, I'm not quite as excited about, but I'm very, very curious to hear what the whole thing is going to sound like. Are you a Sólstafir fan first and foremost? I think I should ask.
I go hot and cold with them. It really depends on what they're doing and where they're at. This would probably be a cold time. to be honest.
I was going to say, I'm going to take knowing you as I do, I'm going to take a wild stab and say that was not your tempo.
No, look, I mean, I don't mind some like other stuff like indie rock or post rock or what have you. But I think the thing that probably did it in for me was the vocals. I don't know if that guy was drunk or whatever when he did them, but like the key seemed optional.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so I do differ with you a bit on this one. I actually did enjoy it. It's not the kind of music I wouldn't naturally gravitate to at all, but there was just something about it that I found I don't know, endearing. I like the riff was very catchy to me. It kind of has, in keeping with the theme of the video, it has this road trip feel to it, and I tend to quite like music like that. I can imagine myself playing this in the car, when I'm driving in South Africa, or if I'm driving to the Lake District or something like that. I quite like it. I'm not as impressed as I was with the first couple of singles. And I don't know what the word Black Rocky means, but it sounds like, some sort of fucking mysterious Icelandic martial art. But it's it's good. It's not going to get a top notch, which, that first single I was pretty effusive over. But yeah, I like it. I don't think it's bad. But I did know when we were about a minute in. In fact, actually, I'd say when that chorus started, I was like, okay, there's no chance Nathan's going to like this.
Yeah, I mean, the music itself had a certain ramshackle charm to it. As I say, I don't mind all like lo-fi rock and what have you.
I don't think I've heard somebody use the word ramshackle for a long time.
There you go. I've dusted that one off and busted it out. Just for you.
All right. Okay, now hopefully this is gonna help reset things a little bit, to something a little more on the manly side. So, Merciless, I Am Hell song premieres. Veteran Death Thrashers Merciless are streaming a lyric video for I Am Hell, the first single of their upcoming album, Those Who Reign Below. It is due out on October the 25th, 2024 through Osmos Productions. I think this whole album landed in my inbox the other day, and I've just not quite gotten around to listening to it. Honestly speaking, am I overly familiar with Merciless's back catalog? I mean, aside from knowing that they've been around for a long time, it's not necessarily a band that I've spent an awful amount of time listening to. So I'm kind of as curious as anything to hear what this sounds like. Just having a quick scan of Metal Archives, many of their records get some pretty impressive reviews. Colored Funeral, that came out in 1993, has an average review score of 93%. The Mother of All Plagues, that they put out in 2020, 94%. Seem to have hit a little snag creatively on Sure to Be Pure, which came out in 2000. That got 28%. But I suggest that album title probably is indicative of what the music on that record sounds like.
About to say the same thing. So we'll see if there's a King Diamond Yell in here.
All right, let's hear.
That'll be the killer. We'll see how we go. Reality, rise of the world, doing your reality.
I think that if you went onto, I don't even know the names of these AI apps that do music for you, but if you went onto the worst written one, like the knockoff version of the cream of the crop, and you said, take extracts from Morbid Angel and Deicide lyrics from the early 90s and, write me a song that basically just sounds like a carbon copy of their demos. This is what you would end up with. It is fucking awful.
Okay, so we're gonna
Oh
do
my God.
we're gonna do the reverse Sólstafir on this one. So to me, this sounded like Obituary had like wandered down to the swamp and discovered some crack pipes and smoked them. Which sounds bad. It sounds grimy and grubby and unclean, and I need a wet wipe. But I think I appreciated that. And maybe it was just because we listened to a lot of like super clean stuff beforehand, but there was just something unpleasant about it that made me somewhat happy. Like, is it produced well? No. I think what you've said is correct. Is it like, can I hear bits of Angel Corpse and bits of like old stuff all crammed together? Yes. But can I hear like Obituary style vocals on top of it? But there's something about all those bits and pieces that's wrong in a way that's right. I don't know if I'm making sense with that, but
No, I can see how, sometimes the puzzle pieces just land in the right way. But if I think about this style of music, I mean, these guys aren't a new band, but if I think of newer releases that has done this style of music a lot better, I think the new Rip to Shreds record, as an example, it shits all over this. Those lyrics are truly dreadful. I'm not someone who pays so much attention to lyrics that it can entirely make or break a song for me, unless they are that cringeworthy. And I mean, those are some of the worst lyrics I've ever seen in my life.
to be honest, I've zoned out on the lyrics. To be quite honest, it was just more the filth of it. Like, as I said, like it just sounded like Obituary like stumbled behind a trailer and discovered some crack pipes on the ground and decided to use them. And it just, yeah. I don't think. I think the other point you raised is they're not a new band. I think if that was someone's demo tape, I'd be like, okay, I don't know that I'd want like an album of that. Let's put it that way.
Mm.
But having heard a bunch of stuff that was polished to within an inch of its life, that was like a palate uncleanser. It was just like
perhaps
a shot of dirt in the face just to reset the palate.
Yeah. As I said, it's I was not feeling it. This is one we may potentially reach some consensus over, though. Arkona out of Poland have put out their new album, and it is streaming in full on Black Metal Promotions. It says here, ahead of this Friday's new full-length release, Stella Pandora, Polish black metal operatives Arkona have teamed up with Black Metal Promotion for a full stream. We can hear what the first track sounds like, but I know this album is out on Deborah Morty, and I've said it many, many times, but what an unbelievable year that label is having. it's been 3 minutes now. I don't want to sit here and listen through the whole 47 minutes, although I'm very tempted to do so. But what did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I've got a real soft spot for like Polish black metal bands. Anyway,
Same.
there's something really strict and cold and merciless about them. And there's no exception. And I really liked the bass tone. There was something that had a lot of mid range and was real clangy, and that also made me happy. I mean, it's like what you expect from Polish black metal. It is strict. It is cold, almost martial to a degree. It's always got a very urban feel. I find a lot of the time too, and I don't know. It just there's something about it that speaks to me, and yeah, this looks like it'd be another release that I'd really enjoy. So
I
I'm
thought
keen
to
to hear
myself when that intro was playing, I thought, Jesus, they are really going to have to come up with something awesome to do this intro justice. Because there are bands like that or releases like that where the intro is fucking killer, and you're like, okay, when this kicks off, it's going to be brilliant. And then when it starts, it's just this damn squib. It's like a 60-year-old man busting a nut. It's like, there's just nothing to it. And yeah, they did not disappoint. That main riff, fucking killer. It just everything here is just working as far as I'm concerned. Every musician is on form. Vocals sound great. Melody is awesome. Riff is catchy. It's exactly as you say. It sounds fucking nasty, mean, unrelenting. It's the first one that we've given on this news rant. Definitely gets a top notch in my book.
Yeah, I'll definitely probably pre-ordering if it's available now. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more of that.
All right, let's do one last one to wrap up. Shamash have put out a new single. Image of the Infinite is the name of the track. It says here, Shamash offer in listening the second single, Image of the Infinite, featuring Catherine Shepherd of Sylvain, from their next studio album, The Maldoror Chants, Old Ocean. The album officially drops on October the 25th, 2024. I never realized this band is as big as they are. Like, until... Cheyenne had somebody from the band on his podcast. I frankly had barely heard of them.
Yeah, I think they're another one that I guess does everything to like a high production value standard, but I think they still maintain a lot of the black metal vibe and a lot of the like the early discussion we're having around Gaerea. You can do stuff to a high level and have big production and big sound and try and do things to a high standard, but it's that thing of like not sanding the rough edges off and not robbing it of its power. And I think they've managed to probably successfully navigate that. I don't think they're going for like rock superstardom perhaps in the same way. I think they're quite happy to be what they are. But to me, this is a more successful execution of having that big sound.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hear what Image of the Infinite sounds like.
When you
it's very obvious to me why I never really knew about these guys before, based on what I just heard there. But what do you think?
So I think it would be interesting to hear. So I guess Shamash are one of those bands that are very almost cinematic in a way. So I don't know whether this would be representative of the album as a whole.
I fucking
So
hope not.
yeah, there would be bigger, more like black metal songs, unless they've decided to fully, switch across. So
From
hard
black
to
metal
say.
to total shite.
Yeah, but I don't know that this song's necessarily representative of their body of work. So I would say if that wasn't doing it for you, probably go listen to some of the other stuff and see if it is. Again, I think they're a band that very much work off albums, not singles. So this is probably telling some part of a story. It's not necessarily the part that I'm the most interested in, which is why I'd be keen to hear some other stuff to see if it's more like the Shamash that I'm used to, or whether they've made a change in direction or not.
So we've got a Shamash apologist sitting in Australia and then a full-bore, newly bred Shamash hater because this song fucking sucks. And I don't mind when bands do different stuff and try different things. I love experimentation. I like moody, music like this. I like a lot of clean vocals, but this is fucking muck. So I will listen to it on your recommendation and the fact that Cheyenne endorses them as well. But this is the sort of thing that gets you fucking wet willy at the very least, head down the toilet kind of thing in my world. So,
I think if the band was just that, I'd probably be on board. I'd probably be on board with that sentiment, but generally they haven't been.
You'd be ganging up on them with me.
That's it. Yeah.
The next show, it's like, let's see how far we can pull them boxer shorts up. Dude, well, listen, it's been fantastic catching up with you, and we will definitely need to do this again very soon. There's a lot of demand from the Legion to have people on or doing the news rant with me, and I like doing it with a guest as well. So. It also always seems like just the way that my own schedule pans out, my Australian homies are probably the best choice to have on, because not only can you guys talk, but, secondly, the time zones seem to always align. I can have my coffee, we can listen to some music and talk some shit, and it's just always a good excuse to catch up.
Yeah. Look, I always appreciate it, and I think it just fills out the time too. The back and forth, I guess, with the news rant is really fun to see. Yeah, just the different opinions and the different views on stuff from people who are in it. So yeah, I've been enjoying. I have to say, also another vote for having guests on the news rant. I think it just helps it give it a little something extra.
A little spice. We'll do another one of them very soon. We're going to finish off with a track off of a new album called The Voluptuous Fire of Sin by a band called Deathless Void out of the Netherlands. They were recommended to me by the great Brandon Legion, and he was not wrong. This album is out on Iron Bonehead Productions. It is fucking brilliant. I am also just going to say thank you once again to Nathan. Thank you very much to Ravn for his time. Hope you guys enjoyed that portion of the podcast. For right now, though, whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.